Dua enter, Dua Ancestor, Dua. Our wombs decree protection and peace. As we inhale deeply into our sacred seat, the gateway of all life on earth, the gateway of all creativity and power, the gateway for all transformation and change, we release all that is blocking us from our ancestors' message, their strength, their energy, their balance, their harmony. Ashe, so it is. Welcome, beloved, to the Sankofa Ancestor Shrine. I'm your host, Sacred Woman Practitioner Tatami, and we are working our way through the Sacred Woman book at a more leisurely pace than we usually do. And by leisurely, this year is kind of turned into I had a lot going on in my personal life, but you can still go on the Patreon. There's still a lot of PDFs up there that you might find useful, entire books. It's a whole free library up there of materials that I uploaded over the years, as well as, free versions of a lot of the materials that I share. You'll also find those on the blog of ritualready.org. And I have a special gift coming for the people who have been my patrons through thick and thin for all this time. So I'm really excited to share that with them. And people who recently quit too, I'll also try to find those and reach out to give them something as well. At any rate, I'm going to start on page 58. And I want to start there, even though this is actually going to jump into the middle of a really long section titled I Cry a River of Tears That Heal. It starts on page 56, but I don't really feel like the energy of this particular sister circle I'm going for is those nitty gritty details of abuse and the issues surrounding them and the trigger warnings for that. We do have an episode for that, but it kind of comes later on in this book, I feel like, and it's something that's more easily handled or more readily handled with the tools we pick up along the way, as opposed to just coming out in the open all at once. Especially, I think that's important because we're not in a in-person sister circle, you and I. We are doing this virtual thing, and therefore it's harder to read these situations. Perhaps you're not able to read the situation because you're in a very vulnerable place too, and so it's just very easy to let things get out of hand and re-traumatize people. And I feel like if you're going to be going through the sister circle the way that I have, I'm laying it out here, I feel like it will be better time to have those personal tools available once we get through the book a little bit further, which is what a lot of this early stuff is. That's why Gateway 0 is the longest gateway. Some of the gateways feel incredibly short, especially compared to this one, because it lays out so many tools, and it does kind of lay out some beginner tools to use. But I mean, this part's pretty graphic. I think we'll just skip it for right now. So jumping in on the bottom of page 58 on the left, she says, I cry a river of tears that heal for our daughters who yearn for peace within their wombs. I cry soul tears of truth and vision, hope and praise for the resurrection of the sacred wombs of the first women. My tears cry a river of healing rays of lapis lazuli, emerald, and energizing malachite as they dance on the vision of newfound, prayed up, purified up, joyous wombs, sacred wombs lifted up by us women and protected by our holy men, our good men. This, I think, is such a beautiful situation that she's describing because, first of all, the symbolism of this, I think, is a beautiful reminder of where our prayers can go into for our ancestors and for ourselves. It also is a reminder of, the laying of hands on each other, the healing of the tears, of the yelling, of the crying that can come, that acknowledges our pain instead of swallowing it back and pretending it's not there and pretending, everything is fine when it isn't. Because, even if you're all prayed up and all this stuff, things can happen, and you want to be prayed up so that you're prepared for those things. But you also want to be able to recognize that sometimes things are going to throw you off your center. Tragedy is going to happen. Hard times are going to happen. You're not going to be prepared for something that happens, and that's a part of the system we're in. That's not something you're just going to be able to like always dodge your way out of, and not all of us are going to be able to get to that level of wealth where we would always be able to dodge those types of things. So yes, I want us to have those purified up, joyous wombs, those sacred wombs, because it's going to lead to our happiness in our lives, of that contentment, of being centered, of feeling like we do have some control over things, because we are in tune with our tools that we have. When things come up, we know how to make our cider or our fire water, you know what I mean, our apple cider vinegar water, and heal our family and heal ourselves and pray over ourselves and give blessings to our family when they go off to college, or whatever's coming up. We're able to fulfill that role, that spiritual but also physical role in our family, to offer tools and teach and pass on those traditions. Because the healing isn't just in the herbs we choose, but also, the songs we're singing when we stir that pot. This womb vision offers us a future so bright that it sends crystal clear light throughout the land in a tide of deliverance. I cry a river of tears that heal with all the women all over the planet Earth. May our collective tears become pure light and transform into wings that fly our souls like Heru the falcon through a global ocean of redemption to heal and baptize the earth. Our ancestors and the Creator, bless all your daughters in the whole world, especially the dark woman of the womb, the eldest mother, eldest ancestors and grandmothers. Protect our wombs throughout our life journey so that we women may age gracefully and beautifully inside of our sacred selves. I cry a river of tears that heal. Now we can roll out of the river and into the healing mud. As our womb draws the nourishment from the earth, we face the sun and get charged. We dance by the river and wash our wombs, reborn sacred woman, moving into our original divine womb-like state. All hail to the mothers who held and nurtured us so that we could be delivered to the planet throughout through our constant attentiveness to the great womb. Thank you, Mother, Father, Creator. I offer these words in gratitude for keeping us and growing us like tall trees, for loving us and caring for all your ignorant children who may have been deaf to our body's plea and numb to our pain. Dearest Creator, may we all be delivered, encouraged, and inspired to make a massive world womb change. If there is no change in the global attitude towards women's wombs, it will be impossible to find peace on earth. If there is no change, war and slavery and the injustices done to humans will always rule. And so I cry tears of praise and honor, respect and gratitude, grace and love to those wombs that have made their transition into the next world, and to those wombs that survived. Okay, so for me, that really got emotional in a sense that it really made me think of, the abortion rights, the forced birth, the lack of autonomy. Women aren't able to make their choices with their bodies. And a lot of this does come down to the controlling of the womb, to the controlling of how the people who have wombs are perceived, the weaponizing of people with wombs to go after other people. And so it's just, it's really powerful to think about those that need to fight, and that use of honoring the womb and blessing the womb and uplifting the womb to also get that place of protection and space for the womb. But also in the sense that, you know, we'll be able to wield that power. It's not just that other people are wielding the power. And it's going to be a hard fight, obviously. It obviously is. And she kind of references that in a minute when she's you know, in the beginning of this part, or in the middle, sorry, when she's talking about rolling out of the river and into the mud. And that's kind of a metaphor for how it's not going to be pretty, right? Your healing is not always pretty. Your fight is not always pretty. It's, you know, easy to think that or feel that way, or feel like you always have to be, you know, presented a certain way, because that's what we see on Instagram, right? And that's what we see on all social media. And TikTok especially has just so much special effects and dressed up. And, you know, when you're creative and you're looking at that, when I'm, as somebody who's been making these videos for a minute and making content and has my hands dabbled in a lot of different things, when I see a lot of TikTok videos, I'm like, wow, all I can think of is the time and the effort and all that's gone into it. And it's really wild to think about, you know, the fact that it's often portrayed as just so beautiful, but there isn't a lot of that gritty stuff. There isn't a lot of that, what do you do when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you have nothing left to put into it? What's something you can do then to heal yourself or heal your kids, or, you know, your housemate, or, you know, help the energy and wherever the space you're in is. That's really the realism that a lot of times we're missing. And so it can give us this false perception of always having to be aesthetically this certain way. Our work should always have to be a certain way. You know, the altar has to look a certain way. This has to look this. A lot of different things have to look certain ways, and this, you know, it just gets to a point where, you know, people are holding themselves back because they're scared to look like they've been rolling in the mud, you know. And I think that the freeing part is going to be able to, is definitely going to be to release those standards, release that part of us that feels so drawn to falling in line and to doing as we're told and to doing as we were raised in the church, perhaps. And, you know, finding those ways to release those standards and also release the need to care about other people doing those standards. And obviously, to a certain extent, to survive in this society, there does have to be a certain extent of like blending in or falling in line or what have you. But at the same time, finding ways to be so comfortable in ourselves and to stand strong in ourselves, and to stand strong in those times when we have to roll in the mud and use the mud to cleanse, and use those herbs to cleanse or what have you, and being okay with, you know, that that's the culture and that's the tools that we need. I did highlight over here on page 59 the womb rituals, meditations, affirmations, chants, and prayers, because um, I thought that this would be a really great activity to utilize. And I'm going to encourage, for this is going to be like one of those involved of like writing a letter type of things. And I do want to say before we start that I'm not encouraging anybody to like reopen trauma or bring somebody back in their life that they need to like keep out of it, because when it comes to wound trauma, often it will be that kind of situation. It will be the kind of situation where, you know, if you are trying to get, even reach out to the person, it may not be healing to send them a kind of a release letter, you know. So there are alternatives to that we'll be talking about, but I did want to say that when I'm like saying the person, like, don't feel like you need to actually talk to this person unless you think that this is something maybe you both actually do need, that this relationship does need to progress to the next level that it's supposed to be on. So this release ritual to cleanse the womb, page 59. The release ritual to cleanse the womb of your soul is to be performed after or during your prayer work. Release helps us to purge both psychic and physical attacks on our wombs. Take a look at all your womb experiences as lessons. Trauma by trauma, the womb will begin to release the baggage that adds up to mental, spiritual, and physical disease. Write a journal letter to the people in your life who offended your womb in any way. In your letter, include self-forgiveness if you have brought any harm or pain to your womb consciously or unconsciously. Know that there comes a time when, to survive, we must let it all go. Pour your feelings onto the pages of your journal. For example, write, I, Barbara, release and let go of the pain Michael left inside my womb and my life. Wake up, shake off and out of your divine womb center the residue of anger and or resentment that you have stored up. Come on, just let it happen. And through 7 days of fasting, prayer, and spiritual baths, release the emotional venom out of your womb, your body temple. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting exercise, because I know that a lot of people do not tend to do multiple days of ritual. That's just not a common thing that I've been seeing as much, because for a lot of people it's like, okay, one and done. I lit my candle, one and done. I've done my spiritual bath, one and done. You know what I'm saying? And it's rarely a thing that goes continuously. And I know sometimes it can be hard, because you may not have enough materials. You know, if you're not somebody who has, you're growing your own herbs, or perhaps you can't harvest that many for that long, or you can't get certain things where you live, etc., etc. So I know that there can run into boundaries, but even if you kind of allow yourself to not feel restrained by specific items or specific, whatever it is that you're feeling like bound by, then you may find that you're able to just go through the actions and commit to these rituals for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 9, 14, however many you feel that like this situation calls for. So yeah, this was going to be a really great, I think, start to putting tools in that tool bag of remembering, committing, and doing a 7-day ritual, and then coming back again on the 7th day, or however it goes. Let's see. So I think because I'm uploading this on a Tuesday, or you're probably a Wednesday by the time most people see it, it's going to be something that will be like on our 5th or 6th day by the time we talk about it next week. If you are able to reach the person you've been hurt or offended by, then send them a release letter directly. If for whatever reason you're not able to connect with that person, then once you've completed your writing ritual, burn the letter, perhaps with a little, she says sage. I would recommend tobacco, cinnamon, incense. I have, the Ancestor incense that I sell at ritualready.org. There's also Ritual Ready on Etsy. And I'm going to start, this is something I just decided like yesterday, that whenever someone buys the incense, I'm going to give them a little jar made from a spice, jar. And that way they can have like an airtight container that's cute to keep it in, as well as, it's going to also have like a little, it's going to come in a plastic bag, and then a little bag that's around. So but I thought that the jar with a little doll jar is going to be so cute, and she can just sit on the altar and have incense inside her. Okay, so you can use, something a little more traditional is my point, not necessarily sage, because there are sages from different places, but like white sage is something that's, as well as Palo Santo, are indigenous to certain communities in the Americas. And so they're also over harvested, and we just don't want to go there. If you're not part of that community, like, let's just avoid it, because we have things that are traditional in our community. Our ancestors harvested tobacco. They did, they used they burned different herbs in Africa, as well as like we have different incenses and colognes and different things that we use here as well. Release your pent up emotions in the spirit smoke. As the letter burns, pray that your release may be taken on wings of air and that freedom may be your destination. Then immediately go into nature, to the ocean or the forest, and sing, dance, shout, cry, or stomp. Be the queen of your body temple. Allow your mind and spirits to be filled with a new world of revelation, self acceptance, and self healing. Working on your forgiveness or letting go ritual is not necessarily for the person you feel may have harmed you. What it really does is ensure your own personal healing. When we release, we create room to draw to ourselves the divine unions that are our birthright. Okay, so finding that way to connect with nature, it may just end up being, a walk through nature and you dance at home. When you get back, your inspiration from it, do it, whatever it is that you can do, in your situation. But hopefully, there's some way for you to find your way in nature, find a little clearing, and be able to dance maybe among the trees, being able to dance in the sand by the ocean, going early in the morning is always a really refreshing air. So, but we are getting closer to fall and autumn, so be warned. You might want to go later in the day when it's a little warmer, sun is high in the sky. Um, yes, this is not necessarily for the other person. Obviously, this is for you. This is for your understanding of what happened. This is for your release of the toxic emotions that are really holding you down, eating at your emotions, and making it so that you aren't able to really let go or move on in the way that you should be able to. And this doesn't mean that, you need to be best friends with this person. You need to invite them into your life. You need to, you do things for them, or, take this to some kind of level. Absolutely not. This is just so that you're not carrying around the very toxic anger and the consistency, and like you can just recognize that this situation was messed up or this person was messed up, and not let your whole day spiral or feel really bad, or even just make you feel bad for any amount of time like that, on a consistent basis, wherein you're not really able to let these things go. All right. So, next time we're going to be on pages 62 and 63-ish, and we're going to go through the 25 womb Hesse chants, using the chants and affirmations for supporting the womb as a tool, different prayer work and anointing, and, different care of the womb, just a brief overview of that from the physical eating standpoint, as well as a few others. And with that, we'll be able to skip ahead, because we don't want to get too much into this healing and food stuff, because that's going to be in sacred food as well later. So we'll skip ahead to chapter 5, the time after next, to about page 123. And that way we'll be able to get moving out of Gateway 0 and onto some of the other knowledge in the Sacred Woman book. All right, thank you so much for watching. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next time.